the rise of the spiritual warrior, which is the antidote to the current situation we are seeing in Europe right now. And it's not only to Europe. And perhaps this also could be the antidote to what we are currently seeing in England. Now, why should I care as a Dutch about what's happening in England? First of all, I've been living in England the last 10 years. I've been living in London, southwest London. And although I'm not quite a fan of the major cities in London, because as you could see here, I grew up near the coast in the southwest of the Netherlands. So I'm quite used to having lots of open space and access to the water, to the sea and all of that. So I'm not quite a bit of a city dweller myself. So the city always gave me lots of stress and anxiety, and it's too crowded, it's too polluted, and you know, all of it. But what is happening there is a perfect example of a psychological and spiritual warfare that is happening against humanity, that is being played out by conquer and divides, dividing humanity through religion and all of that. I think you are pretty much aware that this is where we are at and what's happening in this world. Because what's happening has been happening already since the last hundreds, not even thousands of years. And it's kind of like the example of the Arimate evil spirit that is basically like a blanket covered around the planets, around the world, that has been seeded in through the political, economic system, the governments that are here to control, to have more power and to have more control. Because also what we have been seeing in 2020, of course, through the whole COVID situation, it is like create problems and then come with a solution and then narrow the people into more rules, restrictions and all of that. So what we are seeing in England, the riots, of course it is aiming and targeting like specific kind of classes in society that has perhaps not the best options in life, that has been probably already been struggling to make ends meet for a very, very long time. And then the whole socialistic system has been basically being disappointed and has been working against their favor, and now has been favored against the whole mass immigration. Now of course that creates lots of anger and frustration and emotion within people that have not really a whole lot of things to lose. And then of course we get resistance, we get civil war, we get anarchy, which is of course right now which is happening in England. So as a Dutch, I could also see is that similar patterns has been happening here in the Netherlands for several years, several decades. And those who spoke up against these issues about mass immigration, that all the rights and the benefits in the social system is basically in the favor of mass immigration, people coming in from Arabic and North African cultures and Islam and all of that. And I am not against the Islam, I'm not against Muslims, I'm not against this whole religion. Sure, there are ideology that perhaps is not in whole full alignment with Western philosophy and Western spiritual traditions, and that of course could create some sort of friction and resistance. But we also should be able to create levels of empathy and understanding towards each other and live and let live, and be able that different cultures should be able to live within each other's presence. But that's not really obviously the case here, because what we also have been seeing throughout history is that religion has been used by the evil Arimate spirits, and within the past it was the Roman Church who eventually first of all slaughtered Christianity that had the spirit of the Christ consciousness in it. It has corrupted Christianity and has used Christianity to play massive amount of genocides around Europe and basically has killed the whole animistic traditions, the animistic pagan traditions that we saw in Northern Europe. The whole esoteric connection that the north of Europe basically had. And it also has used shamanic traditions to corrupt shamanic traditions, and basically has used that for dark magic, and has created massive amount of spelling against our whole modern culture. And this is basically what we are having and what we are seeing right now. A massive amount of darkness and shadow, a blanket of an evil spirit which has corrupted the governments, politics, the economic financial system, corporations, and that is really basically now on a psychological spiritual warfare against humanity through divide and conquer and different kind of agendas. So the rise of the spiritual warrior refers to an archetype that basically has been playing out through man, I think also woman. And it's not like you know, the archetype of the spiritual warrior is just for men alone. Of course not. We also see a lot of female warriors as well. Think about the Viking Age, where we had so many shield maidens that were absolutely incredible warriors and fighters that humanity has ever knew. So the rise of the spiritual warrior, it refers to a path of different sets of initiation into hardship, challenge, sacrifices that we had to take in order to develop a level of awareness and understanding on how the world works, and start using that to weaponize ourselves with a level of consciousness to look through this shadow, is to look through this dark side. Because if we are able and develop the capabilities of looking through this dark evil spirits that also exist within us, it's not only out there, it also exists within us, because we were much longer asleep in this whole society and culture that we see nowadays, and now we suddenly start to awake and realize slowly, while still going through massive amount of pendulum swings between the dark shadow that exists within us and levels of light. Now the spiritual warrior also refers to being able to face that shadow, because if we have the fighter spirit, the courage to face that shadow, we will find the light between this whole thing that are happening in this world, and also that light that exists within us. Now, what we must come to realize and what we must be able to integrate more of is to reconnect with our ancestral land. And I'm here in the southwest of the Netherlands, in the province of Zeeland, and I think the history of Zeeland contains the warrior spirit. Because Zeeland has played a very important role throughout the ages in warfare, battle, navy battle, shipbuilding, trading companies, and of course we also had like the part of the Frisians, and not so much the Frisians, more like the Bataven, who were nothing more than merchant traders, sailors, fishermen, who were always at living with and against the elements of water. So right now I'm sitting here at the river, the Westerschelde, which is of course connecting the North Sea with the port region of Antwerp. And Antwerp in the Flemish region was of course always part of the Netherlands. In the time when we were at war with the Spanish Empire and the French Empire, the age of Napoleon, and we had these sea forts here that helped us to fight against these type of empires that were basically against our liberal points of the world, our freedom and will to have commerce and trade. And that kind of freedom and liberation was not really much appreciated, and our form of spirituality and religion was not really much appreciated by these different European empires, which of course also contained shadow aspects of divide, conquer and colonization. But I'm not going to say that we were the saints whatsoever, because in order for us to put our flag in our colonies, we also had to have enormous amounts of fighter spirits and warfare against these other European nations in order to put our flag in these colonies, in order to have our trading hubs, in order to build our wealth in our histories. So part of developing the spiritual warrior is reconnecting with our ancestral lands and our ancestral knowledge and wisdom, know our history, because this is something that can work as a foundation to ground ourselves in our cultural and spiritual heritage, and that can be used as our tree of consciousness, the world tree or the tree of life that exists within us, the different states of consciousness. Think about the world tree within Norse spirituality, Norse mythology, the Yggdrasil with the 9 different worlds, the 9 also representing the last number in numerology, and the number 9, you can be living on the life path number 9, which refers to having and living on the last kind of major lessons we must go through in life, the last lessons of, let's say, shamanic initiation and developing deep spiritual knowledge and understanding of our cosmology. And within the world tree, the tree of life, we have these 9 different worlds, these 9 different dimensions of upper world, middle world and the lower worlds. And in order to bring down knowledge and wisdom from the upper world, we can also connect with different spiritual archetypes, gods, deities, like described in Norse mythology. Perhaps call it an Odin, for example, a divine cluster of consciousness, in spirits that exist all around us and within us, that represents an archetype and represents an amount of consciousness that we can access larger amounts of wisdom, knowledge, shamanic understanding of these different realms, these different realities and worlds that live within us, that we must be able to access and integrate and awaken within us, so we can become a higher form of a spiritual entity that will lift our vibration, that will lift our Merkaba or Taurus, which is awakening the 7 chakras and the chakras above our heads, where we bring in cosmic knowledge and understanding of where we are at in the world. Ground that here in the middle world, the world of the living, the world of the 3D, the world of the earth, of the planets, but also being able to face and travel towards the lower worlds, the shadow worlds that also exist within us. Because to bring more of this light into our existence, we also must be willing to be on this heroic journey of being able to travel to these lower worlds and shadow worlds, because that's where we can bring in the light, and that's when we can bring in a higher level of love for ourselves, but also understanding towards each other, and see each other more as a whole human family and raise above this divide and conquer kind of thing that has been seeded here into us, into our minds, into our consciousness, because that's really what they want, that we fight against each other, so they don't have to do it. But we must all, of course, come to a realization that that is the agenda, so they don't have to make their hands bloody and dirty by depopulating the world or creating more power and control systems that will limit our freedoms. And although we might be start living towards more of a communistic dictatorship here in Europe, and where we might be seeing parts of Europe, like here, the Netherlands, where the Netherlands becomes like a whole new kind of tri-states, where parts of the Flemish region, part of the German region, the whole of the Netherlands becomes like one massive metropole, where we can only travel through a credit system, just like in China, and your credits will be based on your CO2 emissions, by the amount of toxins that you produce, by the amount of eat that you consume, and all the things that were supposed to be good for you, your ancestral diet, now suddenly is being gaslighting and letting you believe that all of that is enormous amount of evil, and that's really how they make you weaker and more dependent, because once you are dependent, you can be controlled. So based on that, that will limit your amount of travel and access throughout these regions. And perhaps that's their way to perhaps compete against other global powers like China, India or Brazil or whatever, or becomes like a global hub that will unite other global empires around the world like Brazil, India, Russia, China, etc. So we must therefore raise our level of consciousness, expand our Merkaba, expand our torus, our energy field, our aura or astral body, by integrating that within our physical body. And that is the path of the spiritual warrior, by facing more of our own inner shadows that will be triggered, of course, by the shadow coming at us from our outside world. And when we don't want to be triggered, we must face our shadow so we can raise above that, so we will not be affected. So I will leave it with that. If you have any questions, if you want to share your thoughts, please let me know. Simply drop a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you on my next videos. Take care for now.